means to suffer together with. It was derived from Latin. The prefix com equates to with. Passion is from the verb pati, which equates to the English noun patient, or one who suffers. Compassion is relational. It is part of a continuum that begins with sympathy, feeling pity for. The difference between pity and compassion is vast. Pity is more hierarchical. We are moved, but it is from a position of superiority. The continuum then moves to empathy, feeling with. While it's good to have empathy and cultivate empathy, even serial killers or psychopaths can feel empathy, but are missing the component of compassion, which involves a drive for action to ease the other's pain. Compassion, which adds the ability to put oneself in others' shoes with the drive to help alleviate suffering. So it's more of a verb. Through compassion, we suffer with others. In UU's second principle, we affirm and promote justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. We begin with the inherent worth and dignity of every person and immediately bring compassion into the equation. The words in the second principle articulate the standard necessary to maximize what is possible in human relationships. UU Minister Charlotte Cowton writes, "Compassion is an act of human will. It is born of the recognition, acceptance, and celebration of the essential kinship of all humanity. When we choose to recognize that each human being is imbued with innate worth and dignity, our first principle, to accept with humility the fact that each one of us is both mortal and less than perfect, and to express our sincere gratitude for the gift of each and every human life, human hearts become joined in compassion." Compassion first tends to occur interpersonally. We witness another's pain and suffering and are moved to feel, care, and to act. Compassion is a response among equals, and true compassion affirms that we are all fundamentally equal based on our inherent worth and dignity. Through compassion, we respond to the other as if he or she is us, because in fundamental ways, given the unity that makes us one, the other is us. All major traditions and numerous philosophies rank compassion among the greatest of virtues. For Christians, Jesus embodies the essence of compassion and relational care. In Hinduism, the central concept that is particularly relevant to the attitude of compassion is ahimsa. I hope I'm saying that right. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that can be translated most directly as refraining from harmfulness. The Buddha stated, "Compassion is that which makes the heart of the good move at the pain of others. It crushes and destroys the pain of others." When his attendant asked the Buddha, "Is loving kindness and compassion part of the practice?" he replied that it would be true to say that the cultivation of loving kindness and compassion was all of the practice. From Islam, the foremost among God's attributes are mercy and compassion. From the Quran, each of the 114 chapters, with one exception, starts with the verse in the name of the God of the compassionate, the merciful. One of the practical purposes of fasting during the month of Ramadan is to help one empathize with the hunger pains of those less fortunate, to enhance sensitivity to the suffering of others, and develop compassion for the poor and destitute. In the Jewish tradition, God is the compassionate and is invoked as the father of compassion. Rabbi Akiva stated that the commandment to love one's neighbor as oneself is the greatest truth in the Torah. From the Kabbalah, one rabbi stated, kindness gives to another. Compassion knows no other. More music.
Ian, can you give us our morning music?
Apartment in the city. Me and Loretta like living there. Well, it'd been years since the kids had grown a life of their own and left us alone. John and Linda live in Omaha, and Joe is somewhere on the road. We lost Davy in the Korean War, and I still don't know what for. Don't matter anymore. You know that old trees just grow stronger, and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there. Me and Loretta, we don't talk much more. She sits and stares through the back door screen, and all the news just repeats itself like some forgotten dream that we've both seen. Someday I'll go and call up Rudy. We worked together at the factory. What could I say if he asked what's new? Nothing, what's with you? Nothing much to do. You know that old trees just grow stronger, and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there. So if you're walking down the street sometime, spot some hollow ancient eyes, well, please don't just pass them by and stare as if you didn't care. Say hello in there.
say something. We'll do the,
Okay. We join, you're gonna light? Okay, thank you.
for you, yeah.
Okay, thanks. We're lighting the chalice. We join our voices in a holy communion of mind and heart, dedicated to the promises that bind us in compassion with one another. In this hour, we light the flame that signals our intention to find the sacred in every living thing. So, anyone have any joys or concerns?
Hi all, good morning. If we could light a candle for the Story Library. It just got closed because of COVID. I don't know if folks know this, but I'm the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. So our library staff has been dealing a lot with substitutions and vacancies and staffing issues because of COVID, trying to keep open to serve the public, but it's been difficult. So keep everybody in your hearts.
Thank you.
So maybe a couple of birthday candles. One for my daughter Anna. Her birthday was on Wednesday, and Michelle had a birthday on Thursday. So,
Happy birthday, Michelle.
Thank you.
I'd like to mention one joy is I've been following the astronomy thing, and that the two planets are coming together on the winter solstice this year that emulates what they call the Christmas star. It'll look like a big star in the sky. I thought, well, how perfect. So I think that's just kind of fun to watch the night skies and have some things come together as a rare occurrence. I guess not since 1200 something
Wow,
did those two planets.
pretty wonderful.
I have a joy that even though
Nice and loud.
even though we have a real we are in a real bad situation with COVID, that we still get to stay home and be with the people we love.
Thank you.
This is Lyda Adair from Billings. I've been having a hard time the last week or so, as have many people in our group. A man who was a member of our group, we hadn't seen him much recently, but he was just 53 years old and died of COVID a week ago Monday. And it's a real loss to know I won't run into him and see him again. He was just a joyful man, had a wife and 4 children. So the family is now beyond the infectious stage, but we will always feel a loss for Jeffrey.
Thank you.
I'd like to light a candle for Katie Hogarty, who was recently appointed CEO of Climb. And Climb is such a wonderful organization, and she's only the second person to hold that position, the first one being the founder of Climb. So she's got some big shoes to fill, but boy, she has the strength and determination, and I'm just so proud of her. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Greg. Can you light a candle, please, for all the incumbent and newly elected Wyoming representatives and senators in the hopes that they will find as much compassion in their endeavors in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you.
The sign, light a final candle for joys and concerns.
A final candle will be lit for joys and concerns unexpressed. Do you want to read the story for all ages?
No, because I haven't had a chance to read it beforehand. So go ahead.
Okay.
But get all your kitties ready. How many kitties are with us this morning? These.
Okay. Well, even if there's no kitties, we're all big children. And the story, the whole service today is kind of pulled around the meditation, which is a little different from normal. This story embraces the last component of our meditation, which is sending compassion to all sentient beings. So the other part of the sermon will pull in two other aspects of the meditation. So this is called the wisdom story, the monk and the scorpion. It's an ancient tale. As it was his early morning custom, the monk went on a walking meditation from the monastery to and around the pond. He walked with great mindfulness. With 4 slow breaths, he breathed in slowly. With the next 4 steps, he breathed out slowly. The rhythm of his breathing and walking were so deeply connected that he did not have to count his steps to match his breathing. He simply walked with great attention to all that surrounded him. He was grateful for the beauty that he saw. He took in the colors, smells, and sounds as he walked. His crimson robes flowed gently in the cool breeze. As he approached the pond, he saw the dancing reflection of sunlight on the rippling water. When he reached the pond, he took a seat on a large rock beside a weeping tree that stood at the water's edge. He closed his eyes and began meditating. Though deep in meditation, he was startled by an unexpected sound. Plop. The monk stood and looked in the direction of the noise. He saw near the water's edge a scorpion splashing in the water where it had fallen off a low-hanging branch of the willow tree. Without hesitation, the monk walked to the pond, knelt, and reached out his hand to gently scoop up the drowning creature. As he did this, a woman passing by stopped to watch what was going on. The monk lifted the scorpion out of the water, only to feel a sharp and painful sting. He was so startled, he dropped the scorpion back into the water. Plop. The scorpion began thrashing about again, and again the monk reached his hand into the water to save it, only to have the scorpion sting him again. Plop. And so it went. Scoop, sting, plop. Scoop, sting, plop. The monk was beginning to feel the effects of the venom. The woman, who was watching, could keep quiet no longer. "What is wrong with you?" she said. "If you keep trying to rescue the scorpion, you may end up in the water yourself." The monk looked at her with determined eyes and replied softly, "Thank you for your concern." He reached into the water, and one more time. Although the scorpion stung him again, the monk was able to drop it on dry ground, and the scorpion scurried away. The monk returned to the stone and sat down again. He said to the woman, "Please understand that the scorpion meant me no harm. It was simply its nature to sting me because it felt threatened." We all act out of our nature. I have been practicing loving kindness for years, and now my nature is to be compassionate. The scorpion could not stop what it was doing, and neither could I. So the meditation today is a loving kindness exercise, a compassion exercise that's been practiced for the various forms of it have been practiced for thousands of years from the East. So I'm going to just have you all just sit quietly and do the meditation along with me here, or stand, and just be with whatever you're feeling. Take some breaths. Just allow your feet to be grounded in the floor. And just try to take some breaths, focusing on your breath, and observe your state without judgment. And you can follow along with repeating these words to yourself. May I be well. May I be happy. Feeling those words. And may I be free from suffering. Allow a picture of yourself to form, and simply allow yourself to radiate heartfelt compassion for yourself. Now, identify someone you care deeply for. Imagine them in your mind's eye and repeat these words. May blank be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. Now allow yourself to radiate heartfelt compassion for him or her. Next, allow yourself to picture a neutral person. I often think of someone like the walking by your house, or the checker at the grocery store, someone you just had an unexpected encounter with. And practice now with them. May they be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. Allow the picture of that person to form in your mind, and take time to radiate heartfelt compassion to him or her. Next, allow a picture of someone you are having difficulty with, or an enemy, or someone you feel strong negative emotion towards. And speak these words to yourself, to them. May they be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. And then radiate that heartfelt compassion to him or her. And finally, create a scene in your mind's eye that includes all creatures, life, and people on earth. You can say, may all sentient beings be well. May all sentient beings be happy. May all sentient beings be free from suffering. And allow a picture to form in your mind, and simply allow yourself to radiate heartfelt heartfelt compassion to all. And if we're ready, we could sing now, Spirit of Life.
Here it goes.
Okay, I feel the loving kindness or compassion exercises that we did today are one means to cultivate compassion in ourselves. Often, when I teach compassion exercises to my clients, the most difficult part of the exercise is extending compassion to ourselves. The following reading is entitled, Your Soul's Address by Reverend Elia Kemmler, and gives a great story on learning self-compassion. I will believe the truth about myself no matter how beautiful it is. Macrina Wiederker. I recently suggested to the congregation I serve as minister that they might want to try praying naked in front of a full-length mirror. Their response was, not surprisingly, slightly hysterical laughter. I didn't make up the idea, but got it from the priest and writer Barbara Taylor. She recommends that from time to time, we take off our clothes, look at ourselves in the mirror, and tell ourselves with as much tenderness as we can, here I am. This is the body like no other that my life has shaped. I live here. This is my soul's address. To face ourselves naked in the mirror with some measure of gentleness, much less reverence, is a hard assignment, I know. Many of us have learned early on that we are either too much or not enough. Many of us grow up believing that essential parts of us are unacceptable. The way we look or feel or talk or love or learn. And we never seem to fully unlearn that shame. It is deeply spiritual work to put down our self-loathing, to set it aside even for a few moments. It is deeply spiritual work to learn to treat ourselves with compassion, to learn to see ourselves, if only in moments, the same way we look at something or someone we find beautiful. A newborn baby, an ocean, a sunset. couple of years ago, I started wearing a pin on my coat that says, "You are beautiful." It is small, and most people don't notice it or say anything if they do. Not long ago in Dunkin' Donuts, parentheses, a place where I spend a lot of time, where a lot of life happens, parentheses, I got up to the counter to order my coffee and realized the woman behind the counter was staring at the button on my coat. I also noticed that the woman had small raised red birthmarks all over her face. For a moment, that felt like a long time, we were both completely still. I watched her as she took in the words, "You are beautiful." Then she raised her eyes to mine and said very quietly, "I like that." "I'm glad," I said, also very quietly, and we moved on to coffee. The second part of the compassion exercise, extending compassion to someone we care about, is the easiest, as is sending compassion to neutral parties. Sending compassion to someone we have difficulty with, however, may be the most important, as it helps us to recognize the absolute, perfectly imperfect humanness in all of us. The following story is entitled "The Kindness of Lo Mein" by Reverend Karen Solveig Anderson. My friend Marcy and her boyfriend Brian recently ate dinner at a local Chinese restaurant. As they enjoyed a plate of lo mein, engrossed in conversation, a hand reached down and ushered away their platter of noodles. A voice, quick and agitated, mumbled, "Sorry," and a thin, poorly dressed woman left the restaurant with their plate of lo mein. In astonishment, they watched her walk down the street, holding the plate with the flat of her hand as she stuffed noodles into her mouth, slapping sharply against her face. The owner realized what had happened and darted out the front door, chasing after the noodle thief. He stood firmly in front of her, blocking her way and grabbing a side of the plate. A struggle ensued. Noodles slid uneasily from one side to the other, slopping over the edge. He surged forward and pulled with a heroic strong arm attempt to retrieve his plate. The woman's fingers slid from the plate, noodles flew, then flopped pathetically on the sidewalk. Left empty-handed with soggy, contaminated noodles at her feet, the woman stood with arms hung dejectedly at her side. The owner walked victoriously back to the restaurant with the soiled plate in hand. My friends were given a new heaping plate of lo mein, although they had already consumed half the stolen plate. A stream of apology in Chinese came from the owner. Unable to eat anymore, they asked to have the noodles wrapped up and set off to see their movie. A block later, they happened upon the lo mein thief. The woman was hypercharged. She simultaneously cried, convulsed, and shouted at a man who rapidly retreated from her side. My friend, unsure about what to do, listened to her boyfriend's plea to just walk away. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the thief and said, "Ah, we haven't formally met, but about 10 minutes ago, you were interested in our noodles. They gave us some new ones. Are you still hungry?" The woman nodded and extended her bony arms. She took the styrofoam container in her hands, bowed ever so slightly, and murmured, "Thank you. You're very kind." What makes us walk away from discomfort or stay? You could say a lot about my friend's story, a lot about generosity, kindness, attention, and thievery. I'm more interested in what motivates us to confront that which makes us uncomfortable and makes us look at the guts and grit of decisions, the choices to not address things that are uncomfortable, uneasy, unbalanced, unnatural, and unbelievable. When our foundations start to shake, we can feel the tremors move up our legs and into our torso. And we want more than anything to make it stop, anyhow, anyway. My friend Marcy could feel herself shake. I know because she told me so. But she chose not to walk away, and she dealt with uncomfortableness. She held firm in the muck. Sometimes that's all we can or need to do to get to the other side, the side where generosity, comfort, and kindness reside, the side where foundations are firm and stable. But one shaking walks back to the other side. May we continue to cultivate compassion to all beings, allowing it to set us free from division and judgment, and begin to view all sentient beings as an extension of ourselves. The hymn, love will guide us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
So we'll do our offering. Let this be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is so sacred. What?
Which is so sacred. I'm just singing it with you.
Too many of us. A community of memory and hope, for we are keepers of the dream. Please make your check payable to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Sheridan and send to Ramona Stein, UUFS Treasurer, 1590 Sugarland Drive, number B-206, Sheridan, Wyoming, 82801. Or from our website, sheridanuu.org, tithe.ly. Our closing words before the discussion? Okay, closing words. Go Forth in Simplicity by Reverend Samuel Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. Discussion.
really enjoyed the service this morning. Thank you a lot. I think this month will be a rewarding series of services, I know for me and probably for other people too. It's a great monthly theme and really appreciate that you kicked it off this morning. Well, at the end of the meditation, I realized I've been doing something that's not very kind to myself for a long time. It makes me anxious. It makes me angry, and it's futile. So I am going to delete the front page go-to news feed on my phone and just stop looking at it as an act of compassion to myself. In fact, I'll do it right now.
Beautiful. Thanks, Bill.
I did that a few years ago, Bill, and you still find out what you need to know, and it really does
I
help.
suspect so, if it's important or if it's something new, right? It's like the line in John Prine's song, the news just repeats itself, right?
Mhm.
In many ways, that's true. Okay, it's gone.
I love it. I always, when I go camping in the summertime and come out, I always jokingly say to my family when I get home, well, did California fall in the ocean yet? Just the world over?
Lisa, I liked those stories that you told so much. And I've been kind of like congratulating myself recently because Emmett's advent calendar, I filled it this year with little acts of kindness that the whole family have to do each day. Just something to do for others. And, you know, it's really easy to write a thank you note to the custodian when you have a good relationship with the custodian, and it's easy to hold the door for people and all this stuff. But I think my self-congratulations has to stop at the point where I realize that it's hard to, like during the meditation, it's hard to imagine someone that you don't agree with. And a number of like political figures come into my mind, and I think like, oh, I have to have compassion for that person too. You know, it's harder to do those acts of kindness and to give the benefit of the doubt to people that, you know, you are in disagreement with or whatever. But that's going to be my challenge to myself, is to do those acts of kindness for those that would not first come into my mind. So thanks for the challenge for the month. I really already love this topic.
Thank you.
So, Lisa, Lisa and I were talking before the service began, and she was sharing with me how much compassion is a part of her practice as a therapist. And so, I have a question for you in that regard, Lisa. You mentioned in your talk that it seems like compassion towards oneself is the most difficult, maybe even more difficult than compassion for our enemies. So as a therapist, what do you think is behind that? Why is it so hard for people to practice or to experience self-compassion?
I'm going to say something profound, like, I don't know. I think really, from the time we're really young, we embed these stories about ourselves that we're not enough or not good enough from the evidence we get from the world, that, you know, getting yelled at or being left out or bullied. And I think they act like black holes, and we have to overcome that. And it takes a lot of courage to look in, because there's a lot, you know, humans go towards pleasure and away from pain. So to really look in and feel that pain is something we tend to not do, and we need to. Does that answer your question?
I've thought about this a lot because recently I've been thinking about shame and overcoming it in myself and how difficult that is. And I think, at least for me, one of the reasons why it's so difficult to feel compassion for myself is that it makes it a lot harder to accept pain from other sources. So if I am beating myself up or like not recognizing my full worth, it's a lot easier to accept. Or maybe it's not actually, but it feels like that's a way to control hurt from coming from outside sources. While if you just say, no, I am worthy and I do have compassion for myself, I think that makes it even scarier when you face pain from other sources and the world, not other kinds of suffering. But thanks for the talk. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I will probably let other people speak first.
Fine.
This is Greg. I unmuted to say something similar to that. When I was doing the exercise, at every step from inside to outside to all sentient beings, I'm a little bit ashamed to say that was, it's a feeling that compassion, that feeling is one that I'm familiar with, but it's not one that I think I feel that intensely every day. And I would like to more often. And so that's a very interesting thing for me to acknowledge that out loud. But also there is a connection between, for me, the feeling compassion for other people who I'm not seeing eye to eye with, etc., is one thing. But the people who I find it most difficult to feel compassion for, or I have to work harder to feel compassion for, are people who I've identified as not feeling compassion for me or other people. And so I think there's some kind of feedback loop that happens. And certainly as we're growing older, as we start out sort of blank slates or whatever, as we grow, and people teach us to not feel compassionate. People teach us to defend ourselves by putting up walls, and we put up those barriers to that pain, and they teach us that we're not good, and they teach us that we're not worthy of their compassion. And so I think that feedback loop happens sort of consistently and constantly, and that exercise was an interesting exercise in trying to break that feedback loop. Anyway, I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but I really appreciated the exercises and the especially that scorpion and monk story. Thank you.
Thank you. I learned loving kindness exercise, very similar to that, about 10, 15 years ago. And it was at a time when my ex-husband had built a house for this guy on a handshake. Basically, he had went in to help the guy finish because these guys had really done a poor job and didn't meet code and then walked off the job. So he felt sorry for him, said he'd finish it up, get it caught up to code. And the guy used him the entire time. And as soon as he finished the house, he sued him for everything he made. And it was, so our family at that time, lost a whole year's wages. And he kind of been set up for that with that intention all the time. And so that loving kindness exercise at that time to send compassion to this guy who had intentionally put our family behind on a year's wages was incredibly, incredibly difficult. But I mean, when we hold those things, hold anger or hate, I think it just hurts ourselves. So I really, it was it was one of my most valuable lessons in life. So thanks.
I was just thinking about Victor's question and then your response, Lisa. And I just messaged Ramona. She had posted the 4 agreements on Facebook the other day. And the author of that book spoke directly to Victor's question and your response in terms of why we beat ourselves up in a nutshell. And really, I think the simple answer was it was because we accept and believe the stories that other people make up about us. And he called that mitote, I think, M-I-T-O-T-E, just the story of our lives, but not made up by us. It's a very powerful influence, and it begins when we're toddlers and continues forever, I guess. So unless you're sort of aware of it, it's maybe hard to shake that.
Thank you for that, Bill. I think once we're aware of the story, though, we have the power to change the story. So awareness is a huge key in there to where we run on these unconscious patterns and stories that were fed to us by others. Thanks, that was good. I forgot about the 4 agreements.
I turned it on. Sorry. I also, when you told the story of the scorpion, I thought about 2 things. And the first one is, if I were in that situation, I'd just go get a box or something. Like, stop touching the scorpion. That's the problem here. You can still rescue it. But it also made me think about a comic that I really like, which I managed to find, and I'll read it. It's the visuals are nice, but the point of it is the things. So this is a pretty familiar story called The Frog and the Scorpion, but a different take on it. And will you take me across the river? The scorpion asked. You'll surely sting me, replied the frog. That would only kill us both, assured the scorpion. So the frog began to swim with the scorpion on its back. Soon they were halfway across the river, and then they reached the other side. The scorpion thanked the frog. What about your nature? The frog asked in confusion. The scorpion paused as it walked away. I can't control my nature, but I can control my actions. I like that story a lot because that's a common story. And in most of the stories, the scorpion does sting the frog in the middle of the river and kills both of them. And I think when you talk about like your nature and compassion, I think it's really, you can feel compassion for someone without that meaning that you have to destroy yourself. And you can feel like your nature is bad or not pure compassion all the time and still choose to act compassion. So I like that story. I think it complements what you were saying.
Thank you. Okay. Should we close with that one?
Extinguish the chalice.
Extinguish the chalice. Oh. Wrong one. In front of my nose. Okay. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
If any of you want to stay on and have some fellowship, feel free to do that.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Good job.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.